Welcome to the Expat Edge with Marcus and Matt, where we answer your questions about becoming an expat to help you thrive abroad.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of the Expat Edge. Today we're going to talk about a topic that comes up very, very often, and it's sending money or gifts to a girl in another country that you met online. My personal opinion is you should never do this if you have not met the person, but I think there's probably a bit more nuance to it. And Marcus, you've had even more people reach out to you, maybe not directly about this, but it usually comes up in a conversation. Back when we were advising people on moving to Russia, it came up very, very often. So Marcus, let's kind of get into this. What are some of the requests that people usually would come to you for or ask advice on?
So at Let's Russia, a lot of people have called us asking about getting a visa, and when we get into the visa type and things like that, the topic comes up of why they're going. So we see one of two scenarios usually. Either a guy will want to go to Russia to visit his girlfriend or female friend who he's been talking to online, or he will want to know if we can help them get a visa to the US, typically to the US. So it's apparent that, lots of these guys have been talking to people online. And if they've never met them, usually I'm a bit skeptical of, how serious this is. I have no idea about all the details, but a lot of people also say, hey, I was vacationing in Mexico, in Turkey, in Dubai. I met this Russian girl. So they've actually met them in person, right? So that's a different thing than talking to somebody online.
Right. I agree. But I think it's just strange that you would want to say, I used to get all these requests. How do I send money or how do I buy flowers for this girl that's in Russia? And then when you get into the conversation, they've never met them. They've just been talking to them online for sometimes only a few weeks, sometimes a year. But it's just so strange to me that you would do that.
Well, it's interesting that in these conversations that I've had is that obviously they're not calling to inquire specifically about, how to, get their friend a visa from Russia or whatever country. It's more about how can I go to Russia? Or in the conversations that I've had, they have been somewhat hesitant to say the real reason they want to go to Russia at first, which is, going to a new country to meet someone is a valid reason, right?
Sure, I agree with that.
A lot of, during COVID, especially when people couldn't travel, we had an increase of requests of how can I get to Russia? How can I maybe not get to Russia, but also get her here, because nobody could, there was limited travel. So this kind of topic of sending money came up when nobody could travel anywhere, and they said, well, I need to send money there. And I'm like, well, is she asking for money or are you kind of volunteering?
Well, so one of the things that always kind of surprised me, I don't know about your experience, Marcus, but I never had a Russian girl that I met in person ever ask me for money or gifts, ever. My wife will joke now if I go on a business trip, right? Oh, bring me something back. But I've never had somebody directly ask me for money. And a lot of these stories, you get into them and the guy says, oh, well, the girl says she has no money. Well, to be honest, maybe this is just my luck. I have no idea. But I never met a girl in Russia who would directly ask for money. And obviously, it's way easier to ask for something via text, online, especially if it's someone you've never met. But I would just be incredibly hesitant to do that personally. I would probably never do that. I would never do that. I would never advise someone to do that. It just strikes me as very strange, though I used to get a lot of requests for.
Yeah, based on our experience, let's talk about a few red flags. The first one probably would be asking directly for money, specifically, especially in the beginning of some kind of correspondence.
Right.
It's just, I don't know, they could come up with, lots of excuses. And I've heard some excuses from these guys, and some are like, I need $600 for the visa. And I tell them, well, the visa is $160, right? And they're like, what? And then they say, another guy says the girl wants, $3,000 for a flight. I'm thinking, a flight doesn't cost business class might cost $3,000.
Right.
But so those are definitely red flags, right? Can you think of any other red flags?
I can think of a million red flags. I mean, if she's asking for money, like you mentioned, that's number one. Number two, I've even had people come to me who had not even had personal information about this person who's asking for money. Yes. Maybe they've done a video chat with them, right? But they're not even 100% sure if it's her name. They don't have her phone number. They don't have, you even told me about someone with just an email. They had only been corresponding via email. How can you build enough rapport to want to give somebody money that you've literally never spoken to live? I mean, this is just red flag number one. All of these dating sites, and again, we're talking about our experience in Russia because that's, where we lived and have the most experience advising people, but all of this is applicable to any country of the world. What I usually use as a kind of barometer is, would you do this with someone in your own country? And if the answer is no, that probably means it's a bad idea. Would you start a relationship just chatting via email with someone in the United States or in Germany if you're German? No, you probably would not. And if someone asked you for money that way, that would be a giant red flag for you in your own country. So why it's not a red flag when it's happening in another country is beyond me. Usually my biggest piece of advice to anyone who's looking for a girlfriend or thinks they have a relationship is stop thinking about sending money. Stop thinking about all of these chats and video calls. Get on the plane and make a small investment with your time and money and go over there. Whether that's Russia, whether that's the Philippines, whatever. And if you're not willing to make that investment, you'd rather send money. Well, I think that's idiotic personally, but to each their own, I guess.
Going back to what you said about, not even knowing the personal information of the person. And they have some intention of potentially going to Russia to meet this person, but maybe not now or something. So I asked them, well, do you talk to them on WhatsApp? And I ask these questions more often because I don't want them to fall in some kind of situation, scam. So I'll say, do you have their WhatsApp? Are you talking on WhatsApp? Are you talking on Telegram or Skype, or where are you talking to this person? And when they say, I only have their email, and I'm thinking, I've heard this several times. Another reason they can't connect with this girl via WhatsApp or basically modern technology is because they live far out in some village in Siberia. And I'm thinking, if you traveled through Russia, you would know that everyone has a smartphone, everyone has WhatsApp, everyone has, some kind of mobile messenger, and you could do video calls. So that's a huge red flag I've seen over and over, actually. I'm pretty surprised that I've seen it so many times.
I think one of the biggest problems here is all of these stupid online dating sites, right? Like Russia Date or Philippine Date or Thailand Date.com, right? And these guys, they create YouTube channels, and we should maybe do videos kind of talking all about their scam as well. But they're basically scamming guys as well. They're making people pay to talk with these women who may or may not even be real. They sell this kind of like paradise story of, oh, you just meet this beautiful woman in Philippines and you can invite her back over to the United States. But the reality, in the best of situations, is way more complicated than that. I mean, you have to deal with visas, immigration in one or the other country. And I don't understand why people think that it's going to be easy to do this. I mean, we're not even getting into all of the cultural differences in all of these different countries either. We're just talking about how not to get scammed in the very beginning. And there's a very easy way to do that, at least in my opinion, is just not send any money for anything until you've met the person. If you get taken advantage of after you've met the person, then it's a different story. But the easiest way not to get scammed is to just not even deal with it. For me, I would just say next.
Let's say you give the girl the benefit of the doubt and you're like, okay, this is, and you have all their personal details, their name, about their family. If they don't ask for money and you send it to them as a gesture, maybe for their birthday or whatever, then the idea can come to their minds like, maybe I can milk this,
Right.
So are you talking to somebody really because you're both interested in each other, and if so, you need to realize that this is a long-term thing where you're going to need to go through immigration and all those things. And with COVID, that has stretched out for 18 months for some people.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a lot of invested time, not to mention the potential loss in money. So
right.
It is worth, getting out there, potentially meeting some people online. That's not a big deal. Maybe just researching, would I, like that country. A lot of people go to a new country to meet, a girl to settle down or something. But when it gets to the point where they're asking for money or that's the point probably where you're like, maybe you could send her you could test her, you say, hey, instead of sending you some money, I'm thinking of hopping on a plane next month and coming, just even if you're not serious about it, see what her reaction is and look for those red flags. Right.
I think a lot of people, they just get kind of caught up in the situation, right? You think, oh, wow, this way more attractive girl than I could, maybe find in my own country. But I don't know. I usually tell people, if it seems too good to be true, objectively, it probably is. In anything. We're not even talking about, relationships. I'm just talking in general in life. If the job seems too good to be true, it's probably not real. If the girl seems too good to be true, it's probably not true. So just be careful. Right. My golden rule will be never to send any money for anything regardless, unless you've met the person. And even once you've met the person, you still need to be, you have to keep your guard up, because sometimes once you've met the person, the pressure can be even higher because you think, wow, we really have a relationship and, this person needs money. But I don't know. The only time I would ever give anyone any money is if I was living with that person and their family was having a hard time and they needed help. In that situation, I could, potentially give money. Anything other than that, no way. That's my personal position, but
yeah, I echo that. I would say at the point where you feel like you're about to invest more, financially, that's when you need to start thinking, is this is this serious enough where I'm going to hop on a plane and go meet that person, or they come here? But then I wouldn't really fund their trip to the US until I met them in person. So,
right.
Yeah. So those are the red flags that, you need to look out for. You need to kind of step back and look at the situation objectively. Is this really realistic for them to, like, their reactions or what they're asking, and then, make a decision, make the next step to go to the country or not. And another thing, the last thing I would say is, it would be great to go to their country anyway, because then you get to understand their culture and thereby them better. So that's a very worthwhile investment. And I think those are the main points that we wanted to share today. And
exactly. The best investment you can make in a relationship with somebody of another culture is learning their culture, not sending money.
Right. So. Exactly. We hope you got a lot out of this video, and we'll see you in another video. Thanks for watching.
This was the Expat Edge with Matt and Marcus. We hope you enjoyed the video. Visit theexpatedge.com for even more content that will help you thrive abroad. You can submit your ideas for video topics and sign up for free at theexpatedge.com. See you there.